Thank you for coming to my show.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
So I've gone through a profile. I can see you're doing a lot of work as assistant professor. Also, you're doing a lot of stuff. So I thought to tell about your work to my audience.
Sorry,
I thought to your
tell
work
about.
to my audience.
Uh, yes, the problem is that maybe I do too much, but I'm my main job is that I'm a professor at the Federal University of Technology Paraná, where I teach introduction to computer logic or to logic for computing, also Agile methods for software development, research methods for research in computer science. And right now I'm also teaching Introduction to Functional Programming. These are the courses I teach. Some of them are for undergraduate students in computer engineering and in information systems, and some of the courses are for graduate students in our Masters of Applied Computing. And this is only the teaching part. As for the research, I do research in several topics of software engineering, like tests and teaching how to do tests, teaching how to develop programs, teaching how to tools for teaching programming. And also, that's one part of my job that I really love, although I'm I'm technically not required to do, is that I'm a podcaster. So I do what you're doing here. I interview many bright people in the software engineering area. I have a few interviews in English, but most of my interviews are in Portuguese with Brazilian and yes, mostly Brazilian people. I have three podcasts. One is about the Elixir programming language, Elixir em Foco in Portuguese. The other is about software engineering, frontiers of software engineering. And the third one is Emilia's podcast, which is about women in computing.
Awesome. Uh, to talk more about what you do and how you do it, I want to tell about my sponsor. So uh, the sponsor for this podcast, Smart Cherries Thoughts, is Stack Adam. Sales and customer-facing teams often switch between various communication tools, causing time management and visibility issues that slow down deal velocity. The solution is Start Adam. With Start Adam, your team can centralize all communications within your chat tool, ensuring compliance, no more switching, waiting, or fragmented chats. Sales teams reach customers where they are building trust and relationships through constant communication. Plus, Start Adam auto summarizes conversations in your CRM, eliminating data entry and speeding up deals. Join Start Adam and start building customer relationships with centralized and compliance chat. So thank you very much again for your presence on my show.
You're welcome.
So how can you able to do multiple tasks? Because I can see you are telling computer logics and you're telling programming related things. So how you are gathered that much information and what's your background?
I have a bachelor's degree in computer science a long time ago. I finished in 1994 and then I did my master's. I waited for a few years and then I did my PhD. So everything I know today is the result of studying since at least 1990, maybe a little bit before. So, for instance, logic. I started studying logic in 1990 when I was an undergraduate student. And then I started logic during my master's, also during my PhD. Right now, I really don't study logic that much. I use what I have what I have studied in the past. But For instance, right now I'm trying to learn a new programming language, which is Lean. Lean is a programming language which can be useful for software developers that want to develop correct software that can be formally verified. Also, I'm still studying Elixir, which is also a programming language, but that it's more for concurrent functional programming. And so that's what I have to balance many tasks. I do a little bit of my podcasts, then teaching, then research. And I believe this is the typical life of a professor in a university.
So you are seeing technology from long time. You have studied long time ago, and you saw the evolution of the technology, and you saw how software is changing, and how the users of different softwares uh, and the software companies in the world are developed themselves. So how do you define this evolution of software development?
Yes. When I started developing software, and it was only for fun, it was not a job. It was a job for other people, but not for me at the time. I had a computer that I connected to a TV set. So a long time ago, Basic, the name of the programming language is Basic. And I have seen that first, programming language changed a lot. And there are many programming languages right now. And there was a lot in the past, but right now you can find a job in Java, in C, C++, Elixir, Erlang, uh, Elm, JavaScript. There are so many programming languages where you can, because I know there are much more programming languages than programming language for which you can find a job. But you can find a job for many programming languages. And also this is only one part of software engineering, which is the programming. Software engineering is much more than that. There is soft skills, hard skills, there is project management, many things that you can do if you want to, if you that you can or that you must do if you want to develop software. So, for instance, when I started studying software engineering, agile methods didn't exist. They were created around 2000, 1999, a little bit before that. And then in 2001, there was the Agile Manifesto, and then Agile methods became more popular. And nowadays, if you go to a company, at least here in Brazil, um, most of the companies will say, "Oh, I'm using Agile methods as a way to develop software. I'm using Scrum, or I'm using some practices, some Agile practices like Kanban or pair programming." So, and my point is that you can do there were several evolutions in the time that I have been studying computer science. I I I'm not sure. I'm not the best person to ask that question, but I believe there was no revolution so far. For instance, I remember that in the past there were people that thought that never we weren't nowadays we wouldn't need to write programs, but we still need to program. And even with GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT, which it's the latest revolution between codes in software development, many people still need to write programs. So I'm there is a saying that says like that. It's very difficult to predict, especially the future. So I'm not going to predict. Maybe in the future, all these programming languages are going to be useful because you are going to write, oh, I want a program like that, and ChatGPT will generate a program for you. I don't know, but nowadays we still have to write programs.
So how do you define human language and programming language?
How do I define
Yeah,
a programming language?
a human language and a programming language.
Yes, yes. Also, I'm not an expert on that, but I know that, for instance, we are here speaking in English. English is a human language, and also Portuguese. And uh, you English is probably not your first language. So, and there is Spanish and many other programming human languages. And programming languages are more formal languages which were created by humans so that we can instruct the computer to do something. So, yes, that's a very general definition, but I believe that it applies to many programming languages, if not all.
So what you like to uh, tell to your students? What subject you like?
I like all subjects that I teach. For instance, I didn't have to be teaching functional programming, but I created a course on functional programming because I wanted to show my students how it's beautiful to write a programming language, write a program in a functional programming language. Also, logic for computer science. I think that analytic tableaus, which is a proof methods. That's a deductive system that we use in logic. It's a very beautiful system where you can write proofs for classical propositional logic, for instance. Yes, I maybe I get excited with too many subjects because there are many other topics that I would love to be teaching too, but there's a limited, a finite amount of time, so I can only teach 4 courses.
What topic or what subject you took for your PhD?
Yes, my PhD was in logic for computer science. I implemented a Tableau prover, a theorem prover, using some versions of analytic Tableau. It was a KE Tableau, which is a system that was created by a guy, Marco Mondadori from Italy. And then Marcello D'Agostino, he wrote several papers about that system. And also, what I liked also about my PhD, it was not only about logic, but also about how to implement those logics using a programming language. So I used Java. At that time, Java was a new Chinese language that was recently created. And I also used AspectJ, which was a library for doing aspect-oriented programming with Java.
How many programming languages you know?
Well, this is a tricky question. If you ask me how many programming languages I wrote a small program, maybe it would be 20 or more, but I don't think this is relevant. The in how many programming languages I wrote at least a program with, let's say that in pages, 10 pages, maybe only Pascal and then Java and Elixir. That's it. I didn't do bigger programs in other programming languages, only Pascal, Java, and Elixir.
So you teach master's level, also graduate level. So how do you define this change, the students in graduation and masters?
Yes, the question is that here in Brazil, if you are an undergraduate student, for instance, in computer engineering, it's a 5-year course. And after that, you can go to the market and be a software developer or computer engineer. If the course is information systems, it's 4 years. But some people want more, want to delve to go deeper in a subject, and that's what the masters is for. The masters, if you I want to really know how TDD, how test driven development works, and I want to try to find some new, to create new knowledge about test driven development, then you do a master's for that. And the masters where I teach is a professional master, so we expect that students are working, so they have a job, and in their, let's say, free time, they can do something that is research, but they don't have 40-hour weeks dedicated to our masters.
So engineering, how do you define this?
Well, I'm not an engineer, so I like the idea that engineers, the general, as I'm formally not an engineer.
Yeah, how do you define this thing,
How
engineering?
do Yes, engineering for me is when you build something that works. That's maybe an imprecise definition, but it's different from science, where you can just study how something works and not, you don't have to make something work.
So, so in general, uh, I understood that you took different subjects to teach students. So one subject is different from other subject, like computer logic is different from software engineering. So eventually, this is for technology industry. All these subjects comes under different fields in technology industry. These students will understand these subjects in order to solve some uh, a problem in the market and in the industry. So how do you teach them? Because you have been in in teaching and as a professor from long time, and you have studied a lot of technology. There is change from the time that you have studied, right? So how you adopted yourself and how you uh, make students to understand present market and teach them according to the present situation.
Yes, I believe from the very beginning, the students in a computer engineering, information systems, computer science, they know that what they are learning is possibly, I'm not saying probably, but possibly going to be outdated in a few years. So there are many things that I studied while I was an undergraduate student that are still valid nowadays, but some are not. And actually, we don't know. I can't tell my students, okay, from this year, it's going to be relevant in 10 years, and this is not going to be relevant. And also, sometimes something that's not going to be relevant in 10 years is going to help them make money today. So they must learn anyway. And the point is that students learn that they must be continuous learning. They they will have to learn, and I believe most of them they accept that fact easily, and they do that. They 3 years after they finish our course, they are reading books, or they are listening to podcasts, they are doing online courses, and everything usually works for them.
So how do you teach usually? What is your way of explaining anything?
I try to make the students do as much work as possible, but I mean, I don't want them to depend on me for that. See, so for instance, in this Introduction to Functional Programming course, I told them, go to Exercism. Exercism.io is a great site for learning how to program in several languages. They have tracks, different tracks for different languages. They have a track for Elixir, a track for Erlang, a track for ML, several different programming languages. And there they can learn by themselves, not exactly by themselves, but they can learn by trying to solve problems and ask for my help, or for the help, asking for help from the mentors in the exorcism site. So that's what I want them to do. I want them to be as 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 how can I say? I want them to be independent of me. I don't want them to be, I'm only going to do that because the professor asked me to do. No, I want them to go and learn by themselves.
So you learned in your life, and now you're making people to learn about what you learned. So when you're teaching something, uh, do you see yourself in them?
That's a good question. I, I really don't remember myself. What I was as a student. So I really can't say that I see myself in them, because I don't remember how I was. That's it.
So you solve different student problems as a professor. So different questions coming from different mindsets. And as a professor, how is that experience?
Just a moment. Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry again. I'm back, and now I believe I have solved my dog problem.
Yeah.
So, okay, could you repeat the question?
So different mindsets, your students are having different kinds of doubts, and you listening to them as a professor, and you trying to solve different questions from coming from different students. How is that experience?
Well, first, I know that as someone who has learned the subject, usually a long time ago, sometimes I cannot understand exactly what's the doubt that the student has. And I believe this is what's called the curse of knowledge. You know that for so much time that you don't remember what is not knowing something. But as I mean, I have I have many students. Not all of them ask questions, and when they ask, I just answer. I don't think much. Oh, that person has this style, and that other person has this other style. I just try to solve the students' problem. Try to help them. Sometimes for instance, one of my logic students had a doubt last week, and then I solved the problem using video. And I sent that to the student, and he understood where he was, because he wasn't being able to solve a problem. So I solved it for that student, and oh, now I know how to do it. And that's what we usually do. Well, at least for the kind of some kinds of problems. For some other kinds of problems, you can't give an answer. You can't say, "Oh, the answer is this." No, you must do something like this. Oh, go to that book, read that text, and then you'll be able to understand, to find the solution by yourself.
So what is your expertise?
Sorry, what's
What
my
is your expertise? Yeah, where you are an expert in which subjects?
Oh, inside computer science. Yes, the problem I would say is that in the last few years, I became much more of a generalist than an expert. I used to be an expert in a very narrow field of logic for computer science during my PhD, which was tableau provers. But then, after some time, I stopped following the literature on tableau provers to dedicate myself more to agile methods in software engineering. And also, few years have passed, and now I'm more interested in knowledge exchange between software developers, because I know that there are many. This is related to that question, in that, and software developers, for instance, they finish a course. Not all software developers have an undergraduate degree or a graduate degree, but for those that have, they still have to they still have to be able to be up to date with the current technologies. How do they do that? For instance, some software developers go to meetups. I don't know if there's any meetup in your city, but here in Curitiba, there are many meetups. There are meetups for, uh, before the pandemic, there used to be much more, but there was a meetup for Elixir, there was a meetup for Java, for Ruby, and for other technologies. And I know that in many other cities, this happens. Some people don't like to attend meetups. They prefer to buy a book and read a book. Some people prefer to go to YouTube and find a video about a subject. Some people are on Telegram groups discussing subjects related to their work. And that's what I say. It's knowledge exchange. I mean, it's not that in a community of developers, there's not one teacher and many students. No, all of them are at the same time or at different times teachers and students. And one teaches the other, one shares knowledge with the other. So that's why that's mainly my focus of research in the last few years.
So your students going into the market and working and helping different organizations, and you being you being teacher for them and you being professor for the subjects that they learned, and they are selling their skills today in different companies. How that helps you?
I'm not sure I understood the question, but let me talk a bit about my students. I have had several students, either undergraduate or graduate students. I'm going to talk more about the graduate students because those are the students that spend more time with me. And for instance, there is one that is a Python developer. So after he finished his master degree, he went to work for a company, and he was already working for an organization. Now he works for a different company as a Python developer. And I hope that what he has learned during his master's degree is somehow useful for his work now. There is this there are many other students which were not my students, but which were students from the same master's degree where I teach, and they work for companies in Netherlands, in Germany, Canada, and also in Brazil. So they, I believe it's difficult to say if they did a master's degree because they loved to study, and then as they loved to study, they continued studying, and then they got great jobs, or they got it, would not be fair to say that, oh, they got great jobs because they finished their masters with us. I don't know that, but I know that there are many bright people, even people that don't have a graduate degree. Here in Brazil, there are many that they have um, great jobs, and they are doing great work for great companies. Some even are founding their own companies. So these students, they usually, in our area in computer science, they usually find a good job after they finish our course.
So, so these technology skills, these technology uh, uh, tools that you're using, understanding all these things, getting knowledge about this. What do you say about today's advanced artificial intelligence?
Yes, artificial intelligence, it's hard nowadays to keep track of everything that's happening in the artificial intelligence. Some people are very excited about that because, oh no, everything is going to change. Some people are more prudent. Oh, some things are going to change for sure, but that has always happened with new technologies. So I'm more on the prudent side. I believe that, okay, artificial intelligence is great. I use in my day-to-day work. I use the free version of ChatGPT, for instance. But I can't see right now that it's going to change everything for all software developers. Maybe I'm wrong. So I cannot say, as I told you, it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in the future. But
But
yes, but as a message, I would say, oh, keep track of what is happening. Oh, there's GitHub Copilot. Go find what's GitHub Copilot in ChatGPT and so on.
so different technology companies in the industry, in the global market today, are working on AI and developing, uh, focusing on AI and trying to solve problems of humans. So we have different technology tools and services and softwares. So do you think AI is going to replace software development?
I hope not. I hope they don't, but I cannot say that for sure.
Based upon your experience that you have been in technology studies from long time, you saw the constant change that is happening in the world.
Yes, that's what I told before. I have seen many promises in the past. Oh, after this, software developers are going to be unnecessary. We won't need software developers anymore. And this never happened. Will it happen now? I don't know. At first, I think it's not going to happen, but maybe I'm wrong.
So, teaching or communicating with students, which is human beings, and communicating with computers. So, how do you define this communication? Difference between communicating with machine and human?
It's very, very different because students, they have emotions, they have feelings, and they have families. They have to take a bus to go to school and then go back to home, go back home. And computers, they understand a formal language. And it's not really communication. You are giving orders. Like you, the computer cannot choose to not do what you want it to do. So I think they are very different uh, kinds of communication.
And you study logic and you understand emotion. So, how do you define this? Logic versus emotion.
Logic and emotion, they are very different subjects because logic is related to what you can, what's the right word, deduce from some facts, from some propositions. You have a set of propositions and rules, and in what can you conclude? What what's what's there in those facts and propositions and rules that you can, what can you extract from that? What can you conclude for that? This is not related in any way to emotions. Emotions are a person, for instance. This is something that I'm not sure there is science behind that, but some people like a subject because they like the teacher, and they don't like a subject because they don't like the teacher. This is not rational, but that happens, and maybe it probably happened to me in several moments. For instance, I told you that I like to study two programming languages. Actually, it's three, but I mentioned two programming languages, Elixir and Lean. The third programming language that I tried to study is Erlang. Why? Because Elixir was created by a Brazilian. Erlang is the programming language that was created in the 80s by three people, and Joe Armstrong, Robert Verdin, and Mike Williams. And that José Valim, which is the creator of, who is the creator of Elixir, José Valim took a look at Erlang. Oh, I like that language, but I want to create a new language based on Erlang. So that's why Elixir was born, because he wanted to create a new language based on Erlang. So I started studying Elixir mainly because it was created by a Brazilian, and I am a Brazilian. This is more emotion than logic. And then a few years later, I discovered that there was another programming language that was created by a Brazilian, which is Lean. And there is a third one, which is known all over the world, which is Lua. But yes, I believe Lua, there's already many people that know a lot about Lua. So right now I'm more focused on Elixir, Lean, and Erlang because those are languages that are for with which I am emotionally attached to them, not because there is some rational reason for studying those languages.
So today, internet connected all the countries, and in different countries we have different spoken languages and different human beings. There's a lot of diversity. So, like how humans have different languages in order to communicate with each other, is it important for computers and softwares to have different programming languages? Can't we have one?
And that's funny because I just told you that Lua was created by a Brazilian, but actually by three Brazilians. But there is one Brazilian that is the guy that mostly talks about the language, Roberto Yerazulinski, and he gave a talk a few months ago called "Why So Many Languages." I didn't watch the talk. I wanted to watch the talk, but I believe that as in because why people speak different languages because they live in different places and they have different needs and there are historical reasons. I believe for computers for programming languages it's the same. We sometimes, for instance, Erlang is great, but Elixir has some resources that Erlang doesn't have. So we need Elixir and Erlang. We also need Lean. Maybe in the future, there some languages are going to disappear because they are not going to be necessary anymore, and some others will appear and take their places. And for me, that's good. As long as we don't have to master 20 languages, which would probably be impossible. But it's great if you, I have to learn 5 languages during my career. That's okay. At least for me, I believe it's possible to do in a full career. And if the market, if the companies need that, that's okay. Because the experience that I see developers sharing is that for some applications, for instance, they use it to do something with programming language X, and then they discover programming language Y, and say, oh, it's much easier to do this with Y than it was to do that with X. So why don't we embrace that idea and so no, from now on, this kind of system I'm going to do with Y and not with X.
Uh, what you do with the podcast?
I have 3 podcasts. The podcast which has more a larger audience is the Fronteiras da Engenharia de Software. This is Portuguese, but in English it would be something like Frontiers of Software Engineering, where we interview. I have a co-host, Professor Maria Cláudia Emer, and we interview mostly professors. Sometimes we interview researchers. All our interviewees were PhD have a PhD in some area, and so they have studied one or more subjects from software engineering in depth. the latest right now, as we speak, the latest interview was published was with Leonardo de Moura, which is the creator of Lean. Before that, we have interviewed Leonardo Murta, which is a professor here at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. No, not exactly Rio de Janeiro. I don't know how to translate, but it's a federal university in Rio de Janeiro. It's UFF. And he works with, how can I say that? It's versioning, software versioning, not only code versioning, but software versioning. And we have had many interviews, many, 40, yes. We have recorded 41 and published 40. And I really love because I learn a lot from those professors and researchers. And that's as I told you, my podcast with the larger audience. There is also the Elixir in Foco, which in English would be translated as Elixir in Focus, and where I usually talk, we are four there, four co-hosts. We talk with people that work with Elixir. And finally, we have the Emilia's podcast, which is about women in computing, where we interview women that work in different areas of computing as professors, as software developers, as network analysts, and so on.
So, can you share your web links with my audience so that they can see the work that you're doing and learn from you?
Share what? The links?
Yeah. Can you spell it? Your presence, online presence.
Oh, yes. The social network that I like the most, it's where you found me, is Twitter. Now it's called X, but most people know by Twitter. And my account there is Adolfo NT, because my name is Adolfo Neto, but I wasn't able to get Adolfo Neto there, so I found Adolfo NT without the E and without the O, Adolfo NT. And there on my Twitter account, you can find a link where you go to my webpage and my other social accounts. I'm on Mastodon too, Adolfo NT at janeserver.social. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, but Facebook is mostly for family related things, but I'm also on Instagram. I have a channel on YouTube, one channel which only has video in English is Elixir in Erlang with Adolfo Neto. I believe it's Elixir Erlang in the Bean with Adolfo Neto. This channel has only videos in English, but I also have a channel in Portuguese, Adolfo Neto. And I believe that's it. Those are the most important links for finding me. If you send me a direct message, on Twitter, if you send me an email, I'm going to answer.
So I'll put your uh, Twitter link on the screen. People who finds our video on YouTube or anywhere in the internet can able to see it and can able to learn from you. And at last, what is your observation about my work? Have you seen videos on my YouTube channel?
Sorry, but I wasn't able to watch your videos because these few weeks have been very hectic. Are still so many. I was part of the organization of one event and then another event, and then I had to replace a colleague. Sorry, but I promise I'll take a look at your videos later.
So my videos are about I interview people from different parts of the world, more than 100 countries, experts I have interviewed, uh, and who are mainly from technology. I interviewed people who worked with Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, who are into Microsoft, Amazon, and Netflix, all the technology companies, and from US, UK, Canada, Germany, on all European countries. So I'm trying to explore technology and technology experts, and also uh, human beings from different parts of the world, who belongs to completely in from different places and different professions. Also, I interviewed police officers, all doctors, professors, all kind of all kind of people for my channels. I did more than 700 interviews in last 3 years. So as a professor, you see a lot of students. You as a professor, you have a lot of experience. What I'm going to learn from this global communication system, and with global experts from all over the world, how this is going to helpful for me in my career.
You mean is is going to be useful for you or for my students?
For me, how it is this work that I'm doing.
Yes, it's good because you are practicing your communication skills, right? And also you learn a lot from the people you probably learn from the people you are interviewing. But I would say that you also have to choose to focus on, at least for your, not exactly for your interviews, but for your personal. You want to be a software developer? Do you want to be a
Uh,
software developer or not?
I actually did masters in software engineering, also bachelors in computer science and engineering. Right now, I'm working for a UK company as a DevOps engineer and a software developer.
Exactly. So you are read software developers, the DevOps engineer is a kind of software developer. So you have to keep on, in parallel, you have to keep on focusing on your studies, on the subjects that are part of your job. That's what I'm trying to say. Because, for instance, if I and this is something that I can do because I'm a professor. I'm a teacher. So I learn a little bit of Elixir here, a little bit of Ling, a little bit of Erlang, and a little bit of anything. It's okay for me, but for a software developer, I wouldn't advise that. I would say, okay, no, choose one of the three and focus on that one. And then you be able to have a job in, for instance, for these three languages, the the language that has a larger market is Elixir. Choose Elixir, study Elixir, try to find a job in Elixir, and then after you have a job, a good job in your free time, study Erlang or Ling or Gling or other programming languages. So if my students are if they watch your videos in their free time, they are probably see people from very different areas and oh this week I want to study this and that week this, if they keep jumping from one subject from to another subject every week, they are not going anywhere. They have to focus on something. That's my point.
So I'm an engineer by profession, and I'm doing interviews in my free time. So that's my
Exactly.
full-time job. So engineering is something that talking with computer and working for a software, and looking at the screen, and focusing on the coding of the application. That is something communication that is happening between me and machine, and me talking like this, communicating with human. So uh, that engineering, a engineer, and a person who is people's person. So how this combination is going to helpful in my future.
I believe that communication can be very helpful in for software engineers, For instance, some people go in a more DevRel career, go into a DevRel career. Some people just go to project management, and some people just keep their technical track, keep it in a technical track in their company, but they have to be a mentor and to younger developers. And for this, you need communication skills too. So what people say, oh, these are soft skills. These soft skills I see, and this is tricky because, as I told you, I'm not a software developer. I'm a professor, but I see software developers saying that soft skills, that communication skills, that that learning how to read emotions in a call, and you're smiling right now. So this is important for your career. Not only you don't, it's not enough to be, oh, I know more elixir than anyone in the world, but I'm a boring person and I keep fighting with people, even on GitHub. This is not going to be good for your career. But if you know how to, oh, I, I, I can be a nice person, I can give a constructive comment, a good feedback that's not going to hurt that person, then it's going to be better, at least in Brazil, because I have learned that, for instance, in Russia, they value honesty. I heard that in an audiobook. In Russia, they value honest, but in Brazil, and I believe in the US too, we don't want you to be 100% honest. If you see my code and think it sucks, don't say to me it sucks. Say, oh, it could be much better. You have to learn how to communicate.
Awesome. So can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Of course.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Of course. Yes.
So can you spell your podcast to my podcast listeners so that they can look at it and can learn from you?
My podcast, if you don't speak Portuguese, you will understand anything you want to understand. Oh, but yes, my podcast, which is Frontiers of Software Engineering, which in Portuguese is Fronteiras, FRONTERAS space DA space ENGENHAR, no, HARAI space. It's very long. Sorry. It's better if you will leave a link. But there is one interview there in English. It's called Software Security with Laurie Williams. That's an episode that everyone that's watching or listening can go. If you go to Spotify or YouTube and you type software security, Laurie Williams. Laurie Williams is a great professor from the North Carolina State University in Raleigh, United States of America. And if you go there, you can listen or watch that interview.
So keep going. I believe that a lot of people going to learn a lot from you and they're going to develop themselves and you will be the reason for their development and for their growth.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you again for your time.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye. Stack Adam. Sales and customer-facing teams often switch between various communication tools, causing time management and visibility issues that slow down deal velocity. The solution is Start Adam. With Start Adam, your team can centralize all communications within your chat tool, ensuring compliance, no more switching, waiting, or fragmented chats. Sales teams reach customers where they are building trust and relationships through constant communication. Plus, Start Adam auto summarizes conversations in your CRM, eliminating data entry and speeding up deals. Join Start Adam and start building customer relationships with centralized and compliance chat.